Satnam, welcome everyone. Nice to be here with you. You want to hang on for today's conversation. I'm spending time with Alykhan Alidina, and Alykhan is an expert in Ayurveda and how to use Ayurveda, all the practices and techniques in order to live your best life, especially in this pandemic world. In our conversation, we'll cover tips and techniques to use in your daily life on how to keep your vitality, keep your stability as things start to continue to change and move. And along the way, we'll learn a little bit more about Alykhan and how he got into the field. So without further ado, my name is Salimah, yoga therapist, and joining me today is Alykhan. So Alykhan, you and I have known each other for a while, and I'd like to hear your story. Tell us a little bit about how you got into Ayurveda and actually what it is.
So I've always been interested in alternative health and healing. And the reason for that is when I was 14 years old, I had back surgery to correct severe scoliosis of the spine. And I actually had a spinal vertebra removed from my back and three bones fused together. So all of my life since the age of 14, I've had to contend with neck and back pain because everything above and below the rod that's in my back, gets out of place and can cause difficulty. So back in 2005, I started going to a chiropractor regularly to manage the pain in my back. And I was pretty much hooked on the system of chiropractic for about 10 years. I also went to work for a chiropractic wellness center in Los Angeles and got exposed to holistic health, mind, body sciences, and medicines. And I got exposed to everything from naturopathy to acupuncture to rolfing to even a wide range of other therapies, including chiropractic. It wasn't until I went to India in 2014 that I got exposed to Ayurveda. And it was really quite by accident that I kind of got into Ayurveda. My brother and mother had gone before, they told me about their experience, and I'd seen a visible change in them. And I said, I gotta give it a shot. And so I went for a 12-day Panchakarma back in 2014, and literally it was life changing. I'd never felt so much relief in my back. I'd never felt so much fluidity and liquidity in my body. My legs and arms and everything was moving to a whole new level. And when I came back to Canada and I started playing ball hockey and resuming sports, I found that I had this energy that I was able to recover from injury or from intensive ball hockey, if you will. It's quite intensive. I was able to recover in like 2 days and be back on my feet and doing the same thing like I was in my 20s. By this time, I was already 35 years old, but I literally had the feeling like of I could play at the same level as when I was in my early 20s, and it felt great. So I'm like, whatever I got, I'm going to go back for more. And in 2014, I went back to India another 3 or 4 times that year. I took up yoga and I got into Ayurveda. And then eventually I said enough of life in North America, and I moved to India in 2016 to really take a deep dive into Ayurveda.
Wow, okay. So if you're getting value from this, it's a great idea to hit the subscribe button, to hit the like button. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. Alykhan, you and I had parallel lives for this last little while, because we have been working in the health and wellness field for this parallel. You in India, for me here and just outside of Toronto. What do you see? What is Ayurveda? Help us understand a little bit more about what it is. And then what's the connection between Ayurveda and yoga?
Okay, so I guess I'd start with the connection between Ayurveda and yoga. Both are drawn or both are inspired and informed by ancient Indian literature called the Vedas, which are basically scripture in Indian tradition and culture that prescribe ways to live your life. Yoga is said to be a science of healing that focuses on mental well-being, and its sister science is Ayurveda, which is focusing on physical well-being. So the two work hand in hand to help create a very balanced and healthy person. So to define Ayurveda, it helps to look at the meaning of Ayurveda, which is comprised of two words, Ayur and Veda. Ayur means life and Veda means knowledge or science. So it's often translated as the science of life or knowledge of life. And it's about giving you the tools to live your life to the fullest. And within that context, it's actually said to be a science of self-healing and a science of longevity. So if you're someone that's interested in living a long, healthy life, and whatever years that you're here, you want to also have a high quality of life, then Ayurveda has a lot to offer you, especially if you're someone that does not want to be reliant on painkillers, on prescriptive drugs, on uh, different doctors and massage therapists to keep you always in good working order.
Mhm.
Ayurveda is really a system to take charge of your own health and to maintain yourself in the best possible health.
Right. And you're right. This is where a lot of times in a yogic tradition, or when you're going through teacher training, there's some emphasis on clean living. In other words, making sure that you have low animal intake, so you're more veg, more vegan, and really looking at different ways to still the mind, and what you're taking in, as much as you're giving to the world, what you're taking into your body. So that really all makes sense. What was the connection to India? What did you find when you got there? What was the treatment like?
Well, first of all, there was a lot of massage, a lot of oily massages, and I think that's one of the key differences between Western dry massages and massages where they kind of drench you in oil. And if you're someone that's used to like a deep tissue massage or a sports massage, and then you kind of go for Ayurveda, in the beginning, you might have questions as to, is this really effective? But in Ayurveda, it's not about the pressure they're putting on you. It's about the oils that they're using. And it's about your body's ability to absorb those oils and to get into your joints and into your muscles and to rejuvenate your muscles, if you will. So Ayurveda really has two parts. It has external treatments that work on the outside of your body and the outside in. And then there's medicines or herbal remedies and preparations, including food, which you consume, and that works on the inside out. So Ayurveda has as this dualistic approach, outside in and inside out. Inside out is really with food and medicine, and outside in is with external body treatments like massage. But there's not only massage. There's baths, there's scrubs, and when I say baths, there's medicated water baths, and there'll be herbal baths, and there'll be milk baths and variations of milk and mixed with all sorts of stuff. So it's a very eclectic mix of treatments that one experiences in the course of an Ayurveda treatment program.
Hmm. And how long would that be? How much time would somebody have to commit to being there and really taking in the environment, the change of food, the treatments themselves, and then a little bit of time to, get sorted and get
So
back home?
I think that if you're coming from, say, Toronto, where you live, or you're coming from Vancouver, we have the hardest time, especially those of us who are over age 40, in terms of adjusting to the time difference and the time zones. So realistically, when you first hit India, for the first 2 or 3 days, if not a week, you're just getting used to the time difference, the change of environment, all of that. And I would say the minimum it takes is 2 or 3 days, and it can drag on for a week to really get adjusted.
Mm.
So I think you need to allow the minimum, I'd say, is about 2, 3 days just for adjustment. And once you're into a routine, then it depends also, are you going to treat a specific ailment, or are you going for just your general health and well-being? We see both sides of the equation. But what we recommend, and what Ayurveda generally recommends, is that people do a seasonal detox. That means with every change of the season, you do a detox, and that detox can last anywhere from 7 days to 21 days. I myself do about a 21-day detox once a year, and I do 3 or 4 smaller detoxes of about 7 to 10 days over the course of the year when the seasons are about to change, or when I notice a change in my body that I wasn't prepared for. So that's kind of like the time horizon. Most people don't have that type of time to give. And that's why we see a lot of people that tend to come to India for this type of treatment tend to be, people that have their own businesses, they work from home, they have a lot of flexibility in terms of work and space. But I would say go and experience Ayurveda for whatever period of time you can afford. If it's a week, it's a week, it's 2 weeks, it's 2 weeks. Next time you're going to increase the time because you'll see the results.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think you're touching on almost every yoga teacher's dream is to go to India, to explore, to experience, to take in not just the culture and the food and the practice, but also to be immersed in the healing nature of what yoga and meditation and Ayurveda actually has to offer.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest advantage of seeking out Ayurvedic treatments or information in this pandemic world?
I think, the pandemic has turned people's lives upside down, like in terms, not just in economic terms, but even in terms of lifestyle, like, from not being able to go to an office or to a gym or to our normal places of social congregation, and being home all the time. That has impacts on how we eat, how we sleep, when we shower, when we shave, all these kinds of things. And I think Ayurveda gives us lifestyle tools that can help bring order back into our life. And just for example, right, Ayurveda is very prescriptive in terms of it encourages us to organize our lives as much as possible with the sun. So the idea is you should be waking up when the sun is rising and winding up your day when the sun is going down, and even coordinating the times that you eat with the natural rhythms of the body in that context.
Mm.
So one of the things that I noticed about myself when I first was in the lockdowns is I would eat whenever I felt like it, and for that reason, even now, I try not to do my work from home if I have the option of going and doing it at a coffee shop, because I find myself less likely to go and stick my hand in the fridge and have foods at the wrong times. In Ayurveda, it's less about what you eat; it's much more about when you eat. So there's specific windows when you're supposed to eat food and when you're not supposed to eat food. So for example, the time between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. is said in Ayurveda to be the time when your digestive fire is maximized, when your body's ability to convert food into energy is at its peak. And that tends to peak, your digestive uh, fire tends to peak between 12 and 12:30. So the idea is with your meals, you're supposed to have your meals in such a way that your major meal of the day is lunch. And that major meal of the day should be at about 12 o'clock. That was one thing that we got right as kids in elementary school when
Mm.
lunch was from 12 to 1. That is the time for lunch. Breakfast, and this is the thing about the Western lifestyle that I noticed after I got into Ayurveda, is that we tended to have a very heavy breakfast. We're told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And that's actually not true. Lunch is the most important meal of the day, according to Ayurveda. Breakfast is supposed to be light enough that you don't feel sluggish as a result of having that breakfast. And it's supposed to just be enough to get you to 12 o'clock if you need to have breakfast. So we hear a lot about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is totally part of Ayurveda. If you look at the modern Ayurvedic doctors, they're talking about you need a 13-hour to 14-hour fast every single day to detoxify, to clean your body. You were asking me earlier about digestion. So one of the core enablers of good digestion, which is central to health in Ayurveda, is to have your dinner by 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then not to have anything until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock the next morning, to give your body that really good cleanse and break.
Okay. I just want to do a quick shout out. Okay, so just on that note, I've been eating like that for years, and I would always get into trouble with doctors and my parents who would say, eat your breakfast, and it just never felt right. So I'm happy to hear new information. I'm happy to hear that Some of our natural tendencies are actually in rhythm with what our particular bodies need.
Yeah.
And you come from a health and well-being background, so what we do have to say is that not all techniques are perfect for everyone. We all have to do our research and figure out what's best and what works best. But this was actually really good for me to hear. Okay, so we're going to talk more about digestion, but I want to give a shout out. We've got Michelle, hi, how are you? Vanessa, thank you very much for moderating. Charles, thank you for being here. Loretta's here with us listening to the conversation, and we've got 9 or 10 others who are absorbed here, everywhere from Japan to some people here, local, very close by. I want to talk a little bit more, AlyKhan, about digestion, what else can be done. And then could you talk about, there's a question here in the chat, could you talk a little bit about the doshas?
Okay. So digestion is central to Ayurveda. I mean, in Ayurveda, it says that most of our health ailments all come back to digestion. How well our body and our stomachs takes food and converts it into energy. Digestion does not only happen at the level of the stomach. The skin is said to be the largest organ of the body, and your skin also digests things. That's why when you put specific oils on your skin also digests that oil in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's important to understand, number one, that digestion is not just something that happens at the level of the stomach. Number two, digestion is central to health, that if you have really good digestion, that you are likely to have really good health, and that there's a correlation between health and its expression and how good our digestion is. So when you go to an Ayurveda resort, they're really trying to make an assessment in the beginning of how strong is your digestion. And if it's not strong, they try to fire it up using certain medicines and herbal preparations and remedies. And that then prepares you for the central part of an Ayurvedic treatment program, which is detoxification. In Ayurveda, the root cause of most ailments and diseases is toxins. Toxins that come from our food, that come from our air, that come from our water, that come from our thoughts. So all of this in Ayurveda is targeted. And the only way to remove toxicity from the body is to have strong digestion. So that's the role of digestion as far as Ayurveda is concerned. In terms of what we can do to strengthen our digestion on a day-to-day basis, Ayurveda talks a lot about drinking hot water. So one of the things that prevents good digestion is our love or tendency to have cold drinks. I see a lot of people, when I used to work at WeWork, would go and take, big water bottles of ice water. And people go to restaurants and they order ice water when they sit down. That's about the worst thing that you can do for digestion, is to have very, very cold drinks, because it's like throwing cold water on a fire. Your stomach is literally a fire. It's there to burn and kindle heat energy. And when you throw ice on it or water on it, it reduces that. So in Ayurveda, they encourage you having warm water and then adding things that kindle that digestive fire. For example, ginger, lemon, things like cumin seeds or jeera in the Indian language. Then there's something called bishop's weed, which is ajwain in Indian language. So these are just a few examples. Cinnamon is a very important herb, basil, and numerous other herbs are there that can be easily looked up on Google and online. But the basic point being is Ayurveda says, drink hot water all day long and try to infuse that hot water with different herbs and spices to, suit both your palate and also to just really keep your stomach working and cleansed.
Okay. So, and what we do know is that things that have trickled from India into the West, like masala chai, for example, or spiced drinks, those are things that are good for our digestion, and they add a complementary factor, not only for taste, but also for our composition.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us a little bit now about what are the doshas and how do different body compositions affect this entire science?
Okay, so Ayurveda says that our entire universe, including our physical body, is made up of the doshas. And there are three doshas, and each dosha is comprised of one or two elements, or the elements in some way, shape, or form. So there are three dominant dosha types in Ayurveda. One is called kapha, and kapha is basically the combination of water and a little bit of fire. Then you have pitta, which is water and predominantly fire. So pitta is like your fire energy, and it's the fire principle. Kapha, coming back to kapha, is the water principle. It's about liquidity, fluidity. And then vata is the air principle, or the principle that governs wind or motion. So all of these, so vata is both space and motion and wind, or that's the basic, the air principle. So if you think about the five elements, they find their ways into these three dosha types. The idea in Ayurveda is that the external world is all made up of the doshas. So for example, during winter, it tends to be more cold and more wet. So the predominant external dosha is kapha. That's the kapha dosha.
Okay.
Someone who has a generally oily skin, oily hair, they're a little bit overweight, or tend to gain weight easily, they have slow digestion, their dominant dosha is said to be kapha. Then there are people who are, the expression goes, hot-headed, people that lose their temper very quickly. They're very sharp in their speech. They have a penetrating gaze. They have a sharp nose. They tend to bald from the front earlier in life. They're said to have pitta. Pitta is now all of us have these doshas in some proportion.
Right.
Generally, one dosha or two doshas are dominant in each person, and very rare breeds are what we call tridosha. They have all three doshas in perfect balance. Ayurveda says that health arises when all these different when our doshas are in balance. Every person has an innate balance, and that's called their body constitution. So, for example, I'm Vata Pitta. That means that the Ayurvedic doctors who analyzed me believe that my dominant dosha type is Vata, but my second dominant dosha type is Pitta. And sometimes these vary. Sometimes my Pitta is more dominant. It's also normal that if you are having a particular dosha type, that you'll develop aggravations related to those dosha types. So someone who has back pain or neck pain or is born with scoliosis, they are likely to have a vata imbalance. Vata is the principle of movement or air or space or something that got messed up in relation to vata. So that's it in a nutshell. It took me a very long time to understand how the doshas work, but our human body is the best way to do it. The best way to do it is to learn, like when you touch your skin and you feel your skin is warm, that's pitta working. Your pitta is strong at that particular time. When you touch your feet and you notice that it's cold, your feet are weak, your pitta is depressed, and something needs to be stimulated. When a piece of food goes into your mouth, it mixes with saliva. That saliva is kapha, it's liquid. Then it goes into your stomach. That's that motion from the mouth to the stomach is vata, it's air that's pushing it down. Then it goes into your stomach and it transforms into something else. That's pitta, the conversion process. So that's the doshas operating at the level of the human body. But those principles work everywhere in nature. A waterfall is fundamentally made of liquid, of water. It's kapha. But what drives the water? It is vata, the motion. Then the sun heats up the water and it evaporates. So that transformation is pitta. The sun energy is pitta. That's energy. That's the doshas in nature.
Amazing. There's so much to learn there. Is it possible to know what a constitution is by looking at someone or having that analysis come from the outside?
Yeah, so there are a number of dosha tests that are available online. Usually, the free dosha tests online are just indicative. They're not highly accurate. There's this one lady, Dr. Shilpa in Bangalore, who has developed a software that does dosha analysis, and it's remarkably accurate. It's like 99% accurate. I've never encountered something so effective in terms of dosha analysis. But she charges for it about $75 per test. Not much, but hers is not a free one. The free ones that are used online, they can kind of point you in the right direction, but they're not super helpful. The other thing I would say is sometimes there's a tendency to get hooked, to get stuck on the doshas and on dosha analysis. If you look at some of the things I've talked about in terms of when to eat your food, when to go to bed, when to have a shower, when to eat in relation to your bath and shower timings, when to work out, these are not necessarily driven by your body constitution. There's certain universal principles in Ayurveda that applies to all dosha types. And so I think that we need to be more interested in those universal guidelines for how to live your life rather than being too hung up on our doshas, because that's an added level of complexity that can come later, but can cause hindrances in the beginning because you're too busy trying to figure yourself out.
Right.
Follow the routines that are prescribed by Ayurveda, and your doshas will work themselves out.
Got it. It's almost like if you know your zodiac sign and you orient everything around your zodiac sign, and then there's a new moon. What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. And I think what you said was really resonated, is that you look at the baseline. What are the baseline principles? Follow the principles, everything else lines up.
Yeah.
It's sort of a charting of success, works the same way. Get your goals in line, get your priorities in line, and go ahead and watch your success unfold. It's all of the same kind of principles in terms of thinking and acting in accordance with what you've been inspired to do.
Before you go to the next point, I just want to share this very pertinent quote in Ayurveda. It
Yeah,
says that when diet is incorrect, then medicine is of no use. And when diet is correct, then medicine is of no need.
correct.
So that kind of really expresses succinctly the Ayurveda view of life, that everything comes back to, when we say you are what you eat, that's very much true in Ayurveda.
Oh boy, there goes my bag of chips tonight.
But Ayurveda says everything in moderation.
I mean,
That's why when you were going on about veganism and vegetarianism and all of that, this is another common misconception. A lot of people, they go to Ayurveda centers and it's predominantly vegetarian, but yet in the Vedic scriptures, you have never ever in your life seen so much detailed prescriptions about how to cook non-vegetarian food. There are like it waxes lyrical about how to prepare bird's meat and goat meat and lamb meat and beef and all types of fish. I mean, Ayurveda is rich with literature in the preparation of non-vegetarian food, never mind vegetarian food. So it's a mistake to think that, that whereas the yogis tend to follow a sattvic diet and it's encouraged in yoga, as far as Ayurveda is concerned, there are no hard and fast rules of that you need to become a vegan or you need to become a vegetarian or you need to do anything. What you need to do is get your timings of your meals right. More important than what you eat. It's when you eat.
yeah, amazing. I mean, isn't that a load off? In many ways, we think about also too. It's not what you think about; it's how you think about what you're thinking. And if we give ourselves permission to eat and to relax in the eating and enjoy it, then that sets up such a different dynamic in the body temple itself. Just
Absolutely.
like when I allow myself permission to think my thoughts rather than to police them, then they tend to, the ones that are, on the negative side, they tend to burn out pretty quickly because there's air in there. Like here we're using the doshas again. There's air, the fire of that thought is going, and then it's getting washed away.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you're saying. I think that that's a really balanced approach. Before I forget, there
Mhm.
was a couple of things that you mentioned that were really kind of struck me. One is showering, because I covered some of these topics a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to know a little bit more about that. And then secondly is what advice does Ayurveda give for showering, and then for rejuvenation, and then also for sleep? What are those techniques?
So let's deal with sleep first. The
Okay.
basic principle in Ayurveda is that we should be in bed by 9:30 at the latest. And the reason is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., again, the Pitta dosha is dominant, but at night, the Pitta dosha has two primary functions. One, to digest all the food that you ate, and ideally it should be done most of the digestion by 10 because you should have eaten by 6:30, 7 o'clock. And most importantly, your body's natural defense, natural cleansing and detoxification system takes place between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Okay.
Sorry, 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So that is why Ayurveda says that if you go to sleep by 9, 9:30, by 10, hopefully most of your food's digested and your body is then using all of its energy for cleansing. And that's the whole principle. So it's most important then to sleep by 9, 9:30. Ayurveda doesn't say anything about any minimum number of hours of sleep, but it does encourage us that as the sun is rising, so should we be rising. And, to really start our day with replenishing the liquids that we've lost overnight. So Ayurveda places a lot of emphasis on, drinking hot water first thing in the morning. Rather than a solids breakfast, we should have fruits in the morning because fruits have a lot of water and it also gives us a lot of healthy sugars. And if there's too much sugar in the fruit, it has a lot of time to burn that off before lunch.
Mm.
So the idea is that sleep, breakfast, a light breakfast, and waking up with the sun, they're all intertwined, aligning our bodies to what in Western science terms is circadian rhythm. So
Right.
we hear a lot about our circadian rhythms, and it's becoming a buzzword with the sleep doctor and everything else out there. Ayurveda has been talking about circadian rhythm for 5,000 years. Ayurveda has been talking about intermittent fasting for 5,000 years. These are all now coming to the forefront of Western New Age medicine and mind-body medicine, but it's been in Ayurveda for eons.
Okay. So let me jump off there for a second. Um, so now I lost my thought.
We have to go to showers as well. So we
Yes,
talked
yes, there
about
was.
So coming to showering, the basic premise is that look, you can shower in the morning or at night, not a big deal. The main thing is that a shower or a bath should be 2 hours away from a meal, or at least an hour away from a meal. The idea being that your stomach needs all the blood that we can send to it for digestion. And if you take a shower, the blood rushes to protect your skin. If you're taking a cold shower, it rushes to protect your organs. So your blood is doing other things other than working on the food that's in your stomach if you're having showers too close to meals. The other thing is if you're someone that has difficulty sleeping at night, then it's recommended that you take a bath in the evening because that will increase what's called the kapha dosha. The kapha dosha, which is the dosha of sluggishness, of laziness, of tiredness, of lethargy, of sleep. That dosha peaks between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. and also in the morning between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. That's why it's said that sometimes we wake up and we need a coffee first thing in the morning to get us going. That's because kapha is maximized at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So in order to counter that, we should work out during that time. So if you're
Ah,
someone that really struggles with getting started in the morning, it's to best have a hot water, have a coffee, and hit the gym or hit the yoga mat or hit the bike or walk or do whatever, that's the time to do your exercise, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Okay. So there you go. You twigged my memory. There's also for a lot of spiritual communities, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is meditation time.
Mm-hmm.
So can you speak about that? What dosha is activated at that time? Why is that part of the culture of spiritual awakening? Why that time?
So I love this question, and without getting into the religiosity behind the question, from a pure scientific standpoint, it is said that the Vata principle, the air principle, the principle of movement is maximized or at its height between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. and also between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. So the basic idea is that if you wake up, say at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, your mind, the vata is elevated at that time. So your mind is much more likely to start running and trying to wrap your head around different things. Oh, I got to do this today. My daughter has this issue. My son has this issue. I've got this work thing pending. All of that. And the idea with meditation and with pranayama is to bring that monkey mind under control. The hardest time to actually do that is between 2 and 6. So from a scientific standpoint, because vata is elevated, there's a lot of people, I've heard this a lot, particularly from elderly adults or people post 50, post 60, post 70. They say, I always wake up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. with this pain. And it's at the maximum time at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And the reason is because vata, the air principle, is at its peak. So that's what tends to happen. And from the perspective of trying to regulate vata, trying to get that vata under control, it's prescribed to meditate between 4 and 5, between 4 and 6, when it's most hard to do that. So Ayurveda is really the science of opposites in a lot of ways. You meditate at the time that it's most difficult to meditate. You work out at the time that it's most difficult to work out, in order to train the body, in order to train the mind.
Right. And when you're going in opposition, then you're rewiring. The nervous system is changing. All of those things are now coming under conscious control rather than, well, I just have my coffee and I flop on the couch. That's just what I do. So, all of these things really make sense, especially when we start to wire them together. Why does yoga say this? Why does Ayurveda say this? And then together they really answer the question in such a fulsome kind of way.
Yeah.
So how did you come to all of this? It sounds like you've really acquired a body of knowledge in your travels and in your own practice. Where did it come from? What inspired you to take this further? And what are you up to now?
So, first and foremost, I felt if I hated being told by my chiropractors that I'd have to see a chiropractor the rest of my life. And it was literally where I had to go in once a week or once every 2 weeks to see a chiropractor. Now, for a guy whose previous job involved traveling 8 months out of 12, living out of a suitcase for work, which I did for a good 4 or 5 years, finding a chiropractor in every city of the world was a bit challenging, particularly the particular kind of chiropractor that I need to see. So by the time I was, 34, 35 years old, I was fed up of having to see a chiropractor for the last 10 years of my life. And no disrespect to chiropractors. It's a wonderful profession. And I've seen a lot of chiropractors do miracles for people. But I personally had a problem with having to go to a chiropractor once a week, once every 2 weeks for 10 years. My wallet had an issue and I had an issue. I wasn't getting better. What was amazing is Ayurveda gave me control of my body and it gave it back to me. Today, if I wake up with back pain or neck pain or ankle pain or whatever, I am my own therapist. I am doing things to myself to be pain-free. Also, there are numerous conditions out there. I see people all the time, well, my doctor said that I have an autoimmune condition and I'm immunocompromised and I'm this and I'm that, and I'll have this for the rest of my life. And there's no cure for this. There's no cure for that. Crohn's disease and, this stomach disorder and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And, we're told so many things out there that there's no cure for this. And I refused to accept that there is no cure for whatever I have. And if people, I know myself that if I had back pain and I was a tennis player and a badminton player, I developed this, massive pain, but I was able to heal myself. There are millions of the people in the world that need that type of health. And unfortunately, our systems of medicine that we're grown up with, and I'm not just saying in the West, but even in India, right? People are just accustomed to, oh, your back hurts, take 2 Tylenols, or there it's Panadol, Advil, all sorts of painkillers, oh, you can't sleep, take sleeping pills, oh, you're depressed, pop this, pop that. So we have a pill for everything in modern day culture. And I refused to be one of those to say that, yeah, I'm just going to live my life with all different pills and all different therapists and rely on others to keep me healthy. Ayurveda gave me a system by which to maintain my health. And I've pushed it to another level because when people come to Ayu rooms, to one of my health resorts, I want them not only to get better, but to have the tools then to look after themselves. That's what I'm interested in. That you don't just come here and then you get hooked to going to a health resort every 3-4 months like I did in the beginning. But as a result of going for your annual detox, eventually you get so proficient and knowledgeable about it, you do it at home. As I said, every season, the seasons change, you do a detox. Before the season's changing, you're doing a detox. You know what to do to look after yourself. And that's what my mission is really, is to enable people to discover Ayurveda, incorporate it in their life. And Ayu Rooms, my company, is just a platform for doing that. I believe that people need to be taken out of their environment to really shake them up that first time. And that's why doing a detox in India is super important, super helpful. I wanted to find the best places in the world at Ayurveda, and that's why I'm in India. Does it have to be India? No, there are Ayurveda centers that are being set up elsewhere, but I do believe that India is unique. And I do believe that if someone really wants transformation, they need to have the courage to leave their comfort zone, to leave, and I wouldn't know why anyone wouldn't want to live the winter in Canada and go to India because it's miserable here with the cold. So there shouldn't be too much disincentive to go away, but nothing better than to be in a warm climate and to spend time transforming yourself and learning this science of self-healing.
Right. And it's so true that when you travel, just, as a person, when we travel, put aside the reset idea, but when we travel, everything does get reset. It is like, we remember that there's 7 billion people on the planet and there are no right and wrong ways to do things.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very enriching and enlivening and amazing to remember on a daily. And then when you throw into the mix the place where yoga comes from, the roots and the origins of what South Asian culture is like, and then layer on top of that the beauty of the people and the place, and then the healing aspect of what you're doing, there can be nothing more transformative. I mean, we're just, after hearing this conversation, I'm just ready to pack my bags and go. We're just waiting for the green signals to open the borders and get on planes again.
Yeah.
And I know you'll be top of mind once that moment hits. How are you working through the challenge now of lockdown, and what's next for you, AlyKhan?
So we're in the process of kind of rebuilding our Ayu Rooms platform and also trying to start another platform. I think that the work from home culture is going to stick with us at least through the first half of 2021, and I think a significant portion of the workforce will permanently be in work from home type of settings or have that kind of flexibility. So I'm kind of preparing for that world. A lot of Ayurveda resorts that I work with, I believe would be the perfect place for someone to live and work from. So why work from home when you can work from a resort? And I really believe that there are a lot of people in the world that have total freedom of location. I remember that when I was in my mid 20s all the way to my early 30s, I had total freedom of location in my job well before this pandemic. And I was one of those people that could work wherever I had an internet connection. So I think there are many beautiful spaces in India that can easily provide people with all the comforts and amenities that they need to be successful in terms of their work. But also you can have a massage every single day, incredibly healthy food, yoga, all of that built into an experience. So I'm working kind of like on an Airbnb, but for yogis who really want to get exposed to a really healthy lifestyle and have everything taken care of, and from their food to their meal plan to their doctor's visits, everything's organized for them. They just need to be working at the beach the way life should be. So that's what's next for me. And I'll be working on that concept. Already started working on that concept. So that's really what's next for IU Rooms, is enabling Ayurveda centers to provide people with that option to work from.
Okay, well, count me in. Thank you so much for that. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for your time and joining us. We're just about ready to wrap up. I just want to say again, thank you to everybody who's listening in and paying attention to this really important conversation.
yeah,
How to improve your digestion, how to sleep better, how to regulate yourself in times of stress. All of that is found in the sister sciences of yoga and meditation. So again, AlyKhan, thank you very much. We're going to drop your website here into the chat, and I'm
hello.
this kind of experience of Ayurveda interesting, then you might also want to check out what teacher training is all about. Because yoga and meditation, they're really great in hour segments, or even 10-minute segments, or 30-minute segments. When you start to live a lifestyle where this becomes part of how you envision your day and how you set up your lifestyle, it has an incredible impact. And we've talked today about physical health. I also want to say that when we are living our true intention, when we're living at the top of our satnam, our truth, then health improves there as well. That's when our self-esteem improves, that's where our self-confidence improves, and our immune system goes up just as a result of that as well. So all of these things are really complementary. And AlyKhan, thank you again for joining in for this conversation. Ayurrooms.com is your website. And if you're looking for information about teacher training, please jump on to YogaVision.com. And until then, we are looking forward to things opening back up again and visiting India for these kind of panchakarma treatments. And I'll be back in touch. AlyKhan, let's have you back on board in a couple months and catch up and see where you're at.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks very much for having me on your channel.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. And if there aren't any other questions, we're going to log off now. And if you like what we're doing and appreciate the conversation today, hit the subscribe button. You'll be notified whenever we go live. And when you hit the like, we know that we've hit a topic that you really find interesting and important. Satnam, my name is Salimah, yoga therapist, and we're signing off for now.
Thank you very much. Take care.